Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode. Hello, mystical beings and beautiful souls. Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast. I'm Rachel Fiori, your host for this episode. So, you might be curious with the title, What You Have in Common with Greedy Billionaires. What could you, listening to me, possibly have in common with greedy billionaires? We need to break this down step by step because a lot of people don't realize that they're not all that different than greedy billionaires. Are you triggered yet? Some of you are like, not me, F you. I'm not effing like any greedy billionaire. I hate those motherfuckers. Right? So let's break this down because we need to understand programming. And why do we need to understand mental, emotional programming, our conditioning? Because it is the only true self-awareness is the first step to true awakening. And no, you are not fully awakened, even with an acute level of self-awareness, because you then have to take the steps to evolve and grow out of that programming. Just because you see it doesn't mean you heal it. Just because you expose it within yourself does not mean that it is alchemized and poof, it's gone. Seeing it is the first step. That's a fraction of what the first universal way of oneness is, the way of responsibility. Seeing it, an acute level of self-awareness, is my responsibility to gain within and about myself. Does that make sense? That's the way of responsibility. An enlightened definition. Remember, these are enlightened frequencies of the 20 universal ways of oneness. This is oneness consciousness, true, authentic enlightenment. And it is a becoming to get there. You're not enlightened because you meditate or you wear a certain thing or look a certain way or because you meditate enough for however many hours a day you meditate or because you do plant medicine. You should know this by now. If you are new, you need to understand you are not an awakened being just because you're spiritual. Spirituality doesn't have any fucking thing to do with being truly awakened. In fact, majority of people that become spiritual go way deeper into ego for a long time before they awaken for real, because they go into just a spiritual aspect of their ego. Okay. How to not do that or to come back from that and awaken for real. Step number one, which again is just one piece of one out of 20 universal ways of oneness. And this is just a fraction of what we have to do to awaken for real. And that is increase our self-awareness, the willingness, the accuracy in seeing what my shadow self is. What programs do I run? How am I contributing to a world, to an ugly world of greed, of inequality, of chaos, of hate, of separation, of fighting, etc.? When I, as an individual human being, am willing to see what I run, what I carry within myself, aspects of my shadow self that are ugly and unloving, and are toxic and dysfunctional and harmful. When I'm willing to do that and see what is inside of myself, that's the first step. It doesn't mean it's poof magically healed. You have to do the work to heal yourselves and elevate out of the conditioning that you've been brainwashed to show up as in this lifetime. That's true awakening. That is true awakening. Okay. So think about this. Before we talk about greedy billionaire, and I mean greedy billionaires, we have to understand not all billionaires, you're not automatically greedy and materialistic just because you're a billionaire. Well, the very definition of a billionaire, Rachel, is greed and materialism. Right there, what program are you running? That's where you're fucking wrong, and that's where you're unconscious. So we have to break this down, and you need to understand this, because if you're running programs that are the same as the actual greedy billionaire, you are no better than them. You just don't have as much money to play with. That's the only difference. That is the only difference. You're just like them. And some of you have so much hate and resentment towards wealthy people because you're just fucking like them, except without the money. You see yourself in their greed and materialism. Well, not me. I'm not. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can wear whatever mask you want to wear and try to justify why you're broke and living in scarcity, and try to act like that's superior than people who are really wealthy, billionaires, multimillionaires, people who have hundreds of millions of dollars. You see the game that you play, that your ego likes to play, that your shadow self likes to play in order to feel better about yourself and your situation? So let's break this part down first. Just because somebody is wealthy does not mean in any way, shape, or form that they are materialistic, that they are greedy, that they are selfish, that they don't give a fuck about everyone else or other people, that they don't give a shit about the goddamn planet or whatever. You are, if you are one of these people that when you see somebody with a big, beautiful house, or they drive a nice car, or they're well off, they can go on vacation and they have freedom because they have financial freedom, whether they are millionaires, people that are like, hundreds of millions of dollars, or billionaires. Okay. It doesn't matter to what degree. If you are somebody that the second you see somebody has money, you automatically fucking judge them, how are you any different than the greedy billionaires who judge you for not having shit? You're not any different. You're just as selfish in your willingness to so freely vomit judgment, making assumptions about the character of another human being that you don't even know. So quick to do that, aren't we? Some of us, so quick to do that. They're a bad person because they live in a fucking big house. Really? That makes them a bad fucking person? Really? Or are you actually the bad person? And you're just secretly coveting the freedom that they have the ability to have whatever kind of house they want to have. Are you the bad person because you're making assumptions, you're projecting bullshit on someone else, and you're judging them? Do you see? That is a level of greediness, by the way. You're greedy. How is that greedy? You are greedy because what you're collecting is a bunch of lies, bullshit, slander in many cases about another human being. That's what you're hoarding. That's what you're drowning in. You have a billionaire's abundance of that. But who's the greedy one? Because not all wealthy people are greedy. You're not greedy just because you have fucking wealth, for Christ's sake. Money makes you, you cannot be that immature and stupid. Money doesn't make you anything. You know how many people that are down and out and desperate and struggling to survive run the same exact programs of these greedy, and I mean the greedy ones, the actual greedy. Of course, there's wealthy people and billionaire people who are greedy motherfuckers. They are part of the problem on this planet. Of course they are. Of course they are. But what a lot of us like to do is take those really horrible people and then put them in some box where then all wealthy people are suddenly in that same box. That's fucked up and dysfunctional. That's a lack of consciousness. And that is greedy on your, how dare you do that to other people? There are enough bad people, actual terrible human beings on this planet. Unfortunately, there is a plethora of them. We have an overabundance of evil, awful, dark, crazy, violent, horrible people on this planet. We are not in scarcity when it comes to that right now. We then don't need you to add to the negativity of this planet by doing to other people what is often done to you by the actual greedy billionaires, where they dehumanize you. They don't give a shit about you. We know that they exist. I am never sitting here telling you that it doesn't exist. It is more and more obvious because it's coming to the surface. Like all the dark shit is coming to the surface. It's been for the last couple of years. It's been a gradual exposure, and more rapidly, we're seeing more of the exposure of how horrific, like the boycott on Kellogg's, for example, which is beautiful. By all means, boycott the fucking shit out of Kellogg's. Don't buy a goddamn product of theirs. Please join that boycott. If you are somehow unaware of that, and I don't mention it much, but if you're listening to somebody like me, you're probably very aware of it. If somehow you're not aware of that, go look that up and see what it is. Boycott the fuck out of Kellogg's. Don't buy any of their products. Let the company fucking crash and burn. Because that is an example of somebody that is so insanely out of touch with reality and humanity. The soul, the humanness is gone from the CEO of that corporation. Those are the people that we see in the world, but some of us still lack a level of consciousness to give credit for that bullshit to that individual and not say, all corporations on the planet that exist are A, B, and C. That's fucking insane. No, they're not. You need to stop doing that because those greedy billionaires, those motherfuckers, the ones that we know of and we know how extreme they are, who say eat cereal for dinner when you're dead broke and you can't afford food, we're not going to fix the food problem. We'll not stop poisoning your food. Kellogg's has nothing but poison in it in what they offer in their products. We're not going to stop poisoning you. And when you cannot afford produce and organic, healthy food to nourish yourself, blah, 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 just go eat cereal for dinner. Like, we all know that those people exist, right?
Quick announcement, we are currently filling our June group class. So if you're listening to this in June of 2024, we are currently filling this class. If you are ready to do this work, then please do a free consultation and save your spot to learn this work, to learn how to go on this amazing journey of inner transformation, of learning how to see and awaken to all of the programs and wounds you have. And then, of course, connect to your heart and learn how to really alchemize and transform at the deepest level by connecting to your soul. So I hope to see you there, and please enjoy the rest of this podcast with the one and only Rachel Fiori. Thank you.
Part of the programming and part of what they offer to the world is dehumanization. That's a form of dehumanization. They don't give a shit. All they care about is, well, great, because if you're all starving and you can't afford other food, you'll buy even more of our cereal and Pop-Tarts and products. All the garbage and the crap that's poisoning you anyway, you'll be even more trapped in our system of enslavement. That's all part of the design. That's all part of their plan. Yeah, they don't give a shit about you. That's very real. Oh, of course, entertainment purposes only. This is speculation. This is for educational purposes only. I'll say it in whatever way I need to say it in order to speak the truth on here and not get this bullshit taken down. Jesus Christ. It's ridiculous that it's even a threat. Like, I might be taken down for speaking about what's going on in the world. Because we have freedom of speech and all in this country, in the United States, don't we? Talk about the truth. Yeah. So when you're talking about people who truly are those that dehumanize, that don't give a crap about you or I, they could care less if we are healthy, thriving, and living our best lives, right? They don't care. They only care about, oh, great. Actually, if you're broke and you're poisoned and sick and you can't buy food, like, this is awesome for us because you'll just buy more of our poisoned food and it's cheap enough. You'll buy more of it. We make more money off of you. The broker you are, the more in scarcity and survival mode that you're in, the more you're drowning instead of thriving in life, we're going to make money off of that. That's the whole system. Okay. Now, many of us know that this is the system. And right there is often the trap when you're not yet a high enough level of consciousness, because you'll go into your judgment, you'll go into your bitterness, your complaining, your resentment, your anger, your fury, your rage, and your fucking judgments. And what you start to do is you start to put all people that have more than you do in a fucking box in the same category as these psychotic, lunatic sociopaths that want you to be sick and poisoned. Now, do you realize the harm, the energetic violence that you're projecting out into the world when that's what you do? I have seen this so prevalently, it is sickening to me. That the second somebody realize, oh, like, you have a nice house. Oh, wait, you make good money. Oh, you this, you that. You live in your dream house. You have whatever you have. All of a sudden, that person is looked down upon like you're one of them. One of them who? Is this human who has financial freedom dehumanizing people, literally poisoning people? Why the hell would you put them in the same category as the psychopaths that are doing that shit? What the hell does that say about you? You're the same as the greedy fucking billionaires when you do that, because you're lumping everybody of a certain class into one category, into one box. You're labeling them, you're judging them, and you are creating separation consciousness. So what programs are you running that's what you do to people who are better off than you? Oh my God, don't even get me started with spiritual fucking people. Spiritual fucking people, the pseudo spiritualists. You ready? Get triggered? Because here it comes. All they want to do is see you hurt. What programs are you running? Well, do you still have inner child wounds? You can't possibly be peaceful all day, every day, almost all of the time. Where are your wounds? Like, I see this nonstop. I've gotten a shit ton of that. It's unbelievable. I want to see what horrible things you have to deal with on a daily basis so that I feel better about myself. And you're a spiritual person? You're insanely unconscious. That's not awakened being. If I ever come across anybody who is very awakened, very highly conscious, very enlightened more than me, are you kidding me? Oh my God, you did it. That's amazing. That's incredible. Oh, I applaud you. I would love to be around you more. You're a higher vibrational frequency. That is magnificent. We need more of you on this planet. That is my inspiration to go higher. I don't say, oh, I want to bring you down to my level so I feel better about myself. The separation that exists when people are in suffering, you don't realize oftentimes when you are in suffering, you want to blame the people who aren't so much or who don't suffer as severely as you. You're just as fucking greedy. That's greed, that you want to pull other people down to your level and suffer like you're suffering. That's dehumanization to them, just like the greedy billionaires. You ever think about it like that? This is oneness consciousness. These are teachings of oneness consciousness. We continue to create duality and separation. Jesus Christ, the separation that we create, and we don't even realize it. And it doesn't mean you don't speak as the way of truth. As the way of truth. The universal ways of oneness. In order to become a being of oneness consciousness, you have to actually learn what truth is. That is number 4 out of 20 of the universal ways of oneness. And that begins with you seeing the truth about what programs you're running, the projections you're offering. how judgmental and mean and cruel and slanderous you are. So quick to attack other people. And on the other side of the same coin is just never saying anything ever at all in truth because you don't want anybody to attack you. You want to make sure everybody likes you and you gain more followers. So you'll never say another word that's controversial or anything. You're just going to be passive, passive, passive and pretend like you're wearing this mask of peace because you're so spiritual. And spiritual people never speak up and speak out about anything. That's some fucking bullshit right there. You are not an awakened being if you're not willing to go into the darkness and transform the darkness into the light that you supposedly are. You are no spiritual person if that's the case. You are no light worker if that's the case. You're not a mystical warrior or a spiritual warrior if that's the case. Pretending and putting on a label doesn't mean you actually are that thing. It's not possible. It isn't possible to simply be passive 100% of the time and be labeling that as that's what peace is. That's not what peace is. Passivity is sometimes an extreme form of suffering because you're so fucking afraid to use your voice. You're so afraid of what people will think of you. You're afraid you're not going to get the validation and the love and the accolades from other people outside of you. That's not peace. That is internal, emotional, and mental anguish. That's not peace. And you are experiencing that and expressing that and projecting that anguish when we go back to you labeling everybody who has a cushy life or they've worked really hard and they've finally made it to where they are, for whatever definition is for them, financially free. And that is a different number. That is a different set point for every person. Some people who are completely financially free can cover whatever they need to cover in their daily lives. And that's their freedom. Like they don't care about anything else. They live a simple life. They have very little, but not in scarcity because that's what they choose. That's freedom. That's abundance. Some people, they want to have, a lot of land. They want to have a bigger, more spacious house. Whether like everybody is allowed, you're allowed to have a fucking preference, people. Stop judging people for their preferences. The greed comes in and oh no, let me hold on. Because this is really key. Greedy people, true greedy people, especially the greedy billionaires, are so fucking entitled. Some of the programs they run, one of the biggest of the programs they run is entitlement. And here's what's hilarious. People who are in scarcity, broke, struggling, resentful of wealthy people, you then think you're fucking entitled to their wealth. This is what's so fucking hilarious and ironic about people who hate greedy billionaires, and yet you think you're entitled to what they have. If you run entitlement programs, those are the nastiest, fucking most selfish programs you can run. And that is one of the most common programs that you have with greedy billionaires. Some of you is that you feel entitled. Well, you have money. You can pay for everything. Well, you have money. You can just fix all the problems. Well, you have money. You can blah, 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 blah. How fucking entitled are you? You have money. I shouldn't have to work at all and do anything. And you should just give me handouts. You have money. Fuck you. How entitled are you? You're just like them. You are just like them. They're entitled. And so are you. Stop being so fucking entitled. There are a lot of people who are not, trust fund baby, spoiled rich. And I mean the spoiled, rich, greedy, entitled, just despicable human beings that some exist on this planet. I'm not talking about the selfish, greedy, entitled fucks. I am talking about people who work incredibly hard. They have earned their lifestyle. They've fucking earned it. They have worked so fucking hard. They have healed themselves. And I've had plenty of people over the years that were coaching clients of mine, for example. Clients of mine who are millionaires, multi millionaires. And they're doing all of the stereotypical things, and some of them not doing the stereotypical things like the private jets and things like that, flying all over the world. But they have an incredible amount of wealth. Okay. And everything from, your $10 million person to your hundreds of millions and things in between, okay, have been my clients over the years. And I'm thinking of a couple people in particular that very spiritual. One person keeps popping into my mind. Very successful person, works so hard, and in his mystical awakening and doing the real work on himself, and was a client of mine for a long time, a year and a half, maybe. I don't remember how long. 2 years, I can't remember. Made incredible, beautiful progress, and just created so much healing and elevation and high levels of consciousness, and lives with a lot of peace, but is in a career and in a job that is associated with the entertainment industry. I'll just keep it at that. And fucking hates it. And yet this is what provides for him, for his family, you know, and it's a tough thing. He wants to set his family up enough where the second he can get out of that industry, he wants to, because he doesn't enjoy it. He hates it. And yet this is what provides for his family. And until he can figure out a way to provide and be okay for like the rest of their lives, he has to keep working. I mean, shit's expensive, right? Um, and that's just an example where if you would, and I'm not going to give details about this person. I don't have the permission to do that for privacy reasons. But if you knew the details, I can tell you right now that person, first of all, on the outside looking in, would just see how much money that person likely has and would categorize him and put him automatically in a box with all the greedy fucks. And he would be judged and projected on. And yet he's one of the ones who, wow, I realized, what this industry was by working years and years, and it's awful, and I want to get out. What the hell, And before your mind starts running mental programs, well, he can do blah, 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 blah. That's right what I'm fucking talking about. You're a greedy fuck right now. If that's where your mind went, instead of in the way of presence, in the way of surrender, in the way of compassion, when you immediately start to fucking judge like you know anything about this person or this person's life or his particular, individual circumstances, and you just start projecting your fucking judgments, well, he could get out if he wanted to. He could do blah, 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 blah. You don't know anything. You know a tiny little crumb of an example that I gave you, and yet some of you heard it and immediately started your mental programs of telling a fucking mental shadow self story about this person, what they could do, when you don't know fuck all about the person. This is what I want you to wake up to today. Because this is how we've been conditioned, brainwashed to be as humans. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting. How the holy hell are we going to enter into our government, our leadership systems, our political systems, and transform all of the fucked up shit that is in there if you and I, as common people, can't even stop running our fucking programs with each other on just everyday shit? How the hell do you expect this world to change when you're not even changing enough? And that's what I want you to realize today in this episode. People judge and they attack. Why are you doing that? Because you're a greedy fuck. Because you want to be right and you want to make someone else wrong. And you're using the currency that you have, an abundance of your judgment, of your projections, of your inequality programs, because that's what judgment is, making you superior and someone else inferior to you. You have the currency. You are the billionaire in that case. You're just using the currency that you have. Energetic fucking judgment, inequality, resentment, hate, all the things. You are the greedy billionaire. And you have the audacity to create separation like those greedy billionaires are so separate from you. That's what we need to wake up to. Some of you are the greedy fucking billionaires. You're just using a different currency. It's time to wake up for real, people. It's time to elevate our level of consciousness for real. And just because you say things like, I'm 5D already, I'm 5D, I'm spiritual, I'm away, doesn't mean you actually are. We're like little children dressing up in costumes and saying, we're awakened, we're spiritual, we're this, we're that. And yet, when push comes to shove, you're the greedy motherfucking billionaire, aren't you? That's what we have to wake up to. If you don't like what somebody says, why? Well, because shut the and drop into your own connection with the deeper you. Why are you triggered by what someone else is doing? And I am not saying that what a lot of people do, holy Christ, especially right now, the level of violence in men right now is out of fucking control everywhere. It's getting worse and worse. Our deepest, darkest shadow selves are coming to the surface. Yep. There's a lot going on. It doesn't mean pretend like that's not there or you should be passive. Don't ever misunderstand. That is your egoic, unconscious separation consciousness programs. Your conditioning is running when you misunderstand what I'm offering to you. That's not a judgment. It never is a judgment. I'm pointing it out so that you can become aware of it, so that you can shift out of it. You cannot become aware of something that isn't shown to you. Hello. That's what this work truly is. That's what the work of a person, an initiate of oneness consciousness, somebody who is actually waking up for real. That is what we need to do. That's a requirement, or you're not fucking waking up for real. I want you to have the realization, and I hope you did in this episode, of what you actually have in common with the greedy billionaires. It isn't about judging other people. It's about having zero tolerance for all of these types of programs, conditioning. The way we show up and behave with each other as humans is despicable. And it's about seeing how I am despicable first and foremost in ways that could be in my blind spot, in ways that I didn't realize before. I have to be willing to see how I'm despicable before I can ever expect anyone else to do the same. Otherwise, I'm a fucking hypocrite, aren't I? So be careful of you yourself being the greedy fucking billionaire, because you might not have that kind of money, financial currency, but it doesn't mean you don't have an abundance of currency that makes you the greedy billionaire too. You just have a different currency. And it's time to wake up to that. It's time to heal that. And if you have that currency and you realized in what was shared with you today, oh my God, I've run some of those programs. I've had that. Yes, I've used that currency. I am a greedy billionaire in this way or that way. Share it in the comments. Saying it out loud, writing it down allows that little bit of a shift to take place, because that's the first way of oneness, the way of responsibility. It means I am owning this. I'm taking accountability for this right now. I see it. I own it. I am holding myself accountable. And I would love for you to write it in the comments, holding yourself accountable. Yep, greedy billionaire. And what's your currency? Is it judgment? Is it projection? What is it? Is it resentment? Is it jealousy? Like, what's your currency? Is it inequality because you're creating someone else and making them inferior and you're superior because you don't do that like the greedy billionaire does? Like, what's your currency? I would love for you to share that in the comments. When you write it down, and if you're not willing to put that in the comments, by the way, get a journal, get a notebook, and write it down. It is so important to write it down, own it, take accountability. I was this. What's your currency? Yep. Judgment, resentment. I verbally attack people. I attack people on social media and try to make them feel inferior to me. That's my currency. Is that your currency, you greedy billionaire, you? Write it down. Write it down. And yes, of course, I would love for you to write in the comments. I would love for you to just own it. Let's heal and do all this together. But if you're not willing to write it in the comments here, please consider writing it in your own journal or your own notebook. Write it down. Own it. See it for what it is. And then make a vow to yourself. I am healing this right now. I am going to become so acutely aware that these are the programs that I run, that I have run, and that I will run when I am not aware enough. And it runs on autopilot. So I am willing to become acutely self-aware of when I run these greedy billionaire programs. And you might be so dead broke financially, and yet there you are, the greedy billionaire. Own those programs, see them for what they are, see the harm, because here's another, let me give you a little tip. And I know you'll appreciate this one. Part of how we lock in and can't get out and heal and elevate out of our survival programs, our scarcity programs, for those of you who truly have like financial scarcity, I have no money. Oh my God, what the fuck? And yes, our economy is destroying people and it's awful, and that makes things a million times harder. However, one of the biggest reasons why we can't elevate out of our situations like that is because we don't realize we are hoarding resentment. We're greedy. We don't realize we're being the greedy billionaires, just working with a different currency, emotions, mental programs, energies. We are absolutely unwilling to let go of our hoarding of all of this shit and judging and projecting and making you inferior to me so I feel better about myself. I'm judging you, blah, blah. I'm going to put you in a box. I feel better now. I'm superior. You are the billionaire. Look at what you're hoarding. Look at what you're spreading around. There's an abundance of it. And so if you don't elevate, if you don't see that and elevate out of that, you wonder why you can't elevate out of financial scarcity. Because you're running all the programs that keep you in that greedy, egotistical mindset, energetic frequency. And then you try to manifest more money. It goes against how you're showing up in the world every single day. Stop putting people in boxes. Stop putting everybody who's wealthy and has more than you, has more financial freedom than you, is now better off. And especially when they've fucking worked for it. They deserve it. Don't you deserve it if you work for it? So why the fuck would you be a hypocrite and judge other people and pretend like they don't deserve what they have? What the fuck is wrong with you? You should be excited for other people and applauding them. And if you're not, you have a lot of fucking greediness in there. Look at that level of abundance that you have of that greed. How can you be so greedy that you're not happy for other people in their success, in their breakthroughs in financial freedom, in their, winning of the lottery, whether, that could be literal, but figuratively, like they've made it. They're finally free. And your greedy ass isn't happy. And then you think, well, they should share their wealth. What the fuck are you sharing other than your greed? You're not sharing applause and happiness and compassion and uplifting, uprising spirit of this beautiful, loving abundance by being affectionate and showering them with, like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you. You did it. I'm so excited for you, in a genuine way. If you're not doing that, you're the greedy fucking billionaire. You're withholding joy and love from with other people. You're withholding that. No different than the actual greedy billionaires who do exist, withholding solutions to our food problem, our problem with farming and completely depriving the earth of its minerals in order to not, because we don't have regenerative, organic, sustainable farming practices for the most part. Like, you're that greedy. You're just the same. How are you any different? They have all the money in the world to be able to change these problems. And the greedy ones with the most money, they do have money to change these problems. And they choose not to. And you have the currency to change your fucking attitude towards people. And you're not doing it. How are you any different than the greedy fucking billionaires? All your judgments, all your resentments. Do you see it? That's what we have to wake up to. Not all wealthy people are the same. Stop showing up like prejudiced fucking assholes and acting like they are. That's like saying all poor people are the same or all homeless people are the same. All homeless people are the same. They're all fuck ups. Fuck them. They're all drug addicts. Like, don't you sound like a prejudiced fucking asshole if that's what you literally put everybody in the same fucking box? Like, there are a lot of people suffering. There are a lot of people who are really down and out, and it is not for any reason related to them being addicts or terrible people or whatever, or unwilling to work and all that crap. That's such bullshit. That is so fucking prejudice. And yet, some people, that's what they do, lump them all in one category. Now, if you are struggling with financially, if you're struggling to thrive versus just survive, or you're barely surviving, if you struggle with scarcity in your own life, you may relate more to people who are homeless because it's a little closer to your situation than the billionaire, for example. And if that's the case, you tend to have a little more empathy oftentimes, like, oh, I'm afraid that I don't want to end up like that. So I'll feel sorry and I won't be prejudiced and judge them and lump them all in one category. And yet you do it to all people that are wealthy. Doesn't make any sense, does it? Guys, stop putting people in categories and instead learn to just come from truth. And the truth is, I can tell you right now, if I get $1 billion tomorrow, I've fucking earned it. I fucking deserve it. I don't lack the ways of oneness. I don't lack integrity. I don't lack selfless service. And that does not mean that my entire, wealth and fortune that I've earned and gotten and accumulated, it doesn't mean the entire fortune needs to be given away to the rest of the fucking world either. How dare you be that entitled and greedy to think that about me with my $1 billion that I have now, in this analogy. It's definitely an analogy. Do you see it? Take a hard look at yourselves, because we, the people, are never going to be able to change the level of greed and inequality and separation and socioeconomic issues in this country or the world if we cannot heal that shit within ourselves first. And if you are arrogant and ignorant enough to think that you don't have any of those, you're part of the problem. And you are what locks in corporate greed of the ones who are actually really greedy and horrific people to continue to be greedy, horrific people, because you're continuing to be greedy and horrific too. You just like to think you're not because you don't have that kind of money. You don't have to have a lot of money to be greedy, people. There's a lot of currency floating around. There's no lack of anything. We have an abundance of everything. There is an abundance of everything. It's just what form of abundance are you carrying around? And if that abundance, that billionaire abundance that you have, is filled with judgment, projections, slander, assumptions, labeling people, categorizing people, judging them, putting them in categories, how fucking dare you say that a greedy billionaire who wants people to eat cereal for dinner is an unfair asshole when you're doing the same goddamn thing, just in a different way with a different currency? We have to change us. People like that, oppressors, are never going to change and have compassion for those who they oppress. It's not about them changing anything, because they never fucking will. It's about us changing and elevating and taking over so people like that no longer have power. If you run the same goddamn programs that they do, what will happen when you gain the power? You're going to be assholes too, just in a different way. Aren't you already right now? I hope this episode helped you to see it. How are you any better to take over or to lead? And that's what we need to see about ourselves. That's what we need to see about ourselves. That's awakening for real. And it's seeing that within ourselves, healing that within ourselves, having compassion, like, holy shit, I didn't realize I was running greedy billionaire programs because I'm not an actual billionaire financially. And yet I realize I am a billionaire energetically in other ways. How am I spending my billions? You see it? So if they're spending their billions on just themselves, on private jets and, 10 mansions, like one isn't enough, right? 10 mansions or 15 or whatever. And they don't care if they're destroying the planet. They don't care that you can't eat food every day because they're good. What is your level of greed? Just because it's different doesn't mean it isn't there. Just because it's not financial in the form of money, because you're, broke or struggling, or, you're surviving just fine, but you don't have a lot extra, that kind of thing. But where are you a greedy billionaire in other ways? And that takes a very responsible level of self-reflection, because that right there, healing that within ourselves, is how we actually change this world. We need people in leadership positions. We need people in government. We need people in politics that are spiritual, that are awakening for real, doing the real work on themselves, the actual, true, spiritual, mystical warriors. We need people like that taking leadership positions in order to remove those positions from the greedy billionaires. But if you are simply another greedy billionaire in a different way, how are we changing anything? We're not. That's what I want you to wake up to. Do the work on yourselves. Get the coaching. Go to mastersofselfuniversity.com. Get a free consultation. Join our group classes. Get what you need to heal for real and elevate to the highest level that you can. None of this is a judgment on you. It's just a wake-up call. The way of truth is one of the ways of oneness. We have to see it within ourselves, how greedy we are sometimes. And we need to heal that greed in order to then be the people who are capable and worthy enough to actually remove other greedy people who are going to stay greedy forever from their positions of power. That includes the position of president. That includes people in Congress. That includes people in big corporations. Imagine if a bunch of enlightened, healed warriors showed up and took over a corporation, because we, the people with the divine power that we are and have, unite together in oneness, healed our greedy programs, our judgment programs, our projection programs, et cetera, our attack programs and slander programs, inequality programs. Imagine if we did the work to heal ourselves like this. And then when the fall of these corporations happen, we could actually take them over and create corporations from a place of love, from a place of enlightenment, from a place of actual selfless service and honoring and trust and equality, harmlessness and gentleness, etc. That's what we are supposed to be doing. With the fall and the dismantling of patriarchy, of our government, of corrupt corporations that are creating so many problems in the world, we have to be able to rise up like the phoenix out of the ashes and take these leadership roles and lead people into a new earth for real. And you're not fucking doing it if you yourself still run programs of the judgment and the resentment and the slander and the jealousy and the greed. You're just like them. But you and your ego want to pretend you're not because you don't have the billions in the bank. It's time to wake up for real. It's time to wake up for real because we need to be better so that we can create better and we can experience better on this planet. Just because you're different doesn't mean you're better, more improved. Just because you're different, I hope you realize with today's teaching that some of you still run those really dysfunctional, greedy programs and what are similar to creating greed. That entitlement. Ugh. You're not entitled to other people's money. They fucking work hard for it. And before a lot of the people who are truly greedy, at the highest end of um, like the billionaire spectrum that are really, truly greedy, some of those people started to work really hard, achieved a lot, became very successful, and then gained more success over time. When they do that and they are completely spiritually unconscious and they run the programs that a lot of you run right here, right now that are listening to this, the entitlement, the greed, the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They already had that programming in there. What just magnifies it and makes it easier to see are the millions and millions and billions of dollars. Does that make sense? It just magnified and gave them the freedom to be what they already were. And working hard to be successful doesn't mean you don't deserve the wealth and the financial freedom that you've worked so fucking hard for. You deserve it, especially when you work really hard to get and achieve, and it takes a long time to get there. You deserve everything that you earn when it comes to that. All the millions. Of course you do. We're supposed to be free, right? You can earn whatever you want. That's how it should work. The greediness was already in there. So when somebody becomes a billionaire and that greediness and that scarcity mindset, by the way, how can you be a billionaire in scarcity mindset? Because a billionaire with scarcity mindset hoards it all to themselves and doesn't give a fucking shit about anybody else. And it doesn't mean they owe you anything. It's not one and the same. But somebody without a scarcity mindset who functions as the way of selfless service, the way of integrity, the way of unconditional love would say, oh my God, there's so many fucking problems in the world. Myself, with all my money, I can't solve all of them. That's not even possible. You cannot solve all the problems with the world with money. You don't just write a paycheck and then poof, all the problems are fucking gone. And that's where I want you to see your judgments and how fucking greedy you are expecting other people to do that, because that's not possible. You can't just write a fucking paycheck and then poof, everything's healed. That's not how it works, people. But what you can do if you didn't have scarcity problems as a billionaire, scarcity programs, if you actually functioned as the way of selfless service, as the way of unconditional love, as the way of harmony, Part of what you would be doing with some portion of your wealth would be investing in solving the problems of the world. It would be part of what you did to some degree. Okay? And when you're not doing that, you can see the greed. But here's the last thing I want to bring up to you. How are you solving the problems of the world? Just waiting for you to magically become a millionaire or a billionaire? What are you actually doing to solve the problems of the world? Are you doing nothing to solve the problems of the world and then using excuses and justifications? But I barely have any money and I'm in survival mode and you don't know me. But what are you actually doing to solve the problems of the world? Because the greedy billionaires have all the excuses in the world to not solve the problems of the world, but don't you also have? And your first excuse is, but I don't have the money to do that. No, you don't have the money to do as much and as easily as someone else might. It doesn't mean you can't do anything. So how different are you than the greedy billionaire? How different are you than the greedy billionaire? That's a serious question. What are you doing to solve the major problems in the world? Bitching and complaining on social media? Attacking people on social media because you feel safe behind your phone or your computer? Are you standing up and rising up and taking action? Are you judging everybody that you don't like out there that you think are the problems of the world? Or are you actually standing up and rising up and taking action to solve the problems of the world, even in a small way that you have any capability to do? Well, I can do nothing because right there, you're the greedy fucking billionaire. How dare you? And if that's the case, sit down, shut the fuck up, stop typing because you're not much different than them. You're just in a different financial bracket. What are you doing to solve the problems of the world? What are you doing to run for leadership positions to change politics and our fucking country? Well, I don't want to. Well, the greedy billionaire doesn't want to help you and your pathetic, sorry, poor ass. How are you different? How are you any different than that? But that's not my dream job, not mine either. And I was asked to run for president and I answered the call. That was not an easy thing to say yes to. Let me tell you, not easy at all to say yes to that. But I'm not a greedy billionaire. So I said yes to the call. My answer was yes. Because I'm willing to rise up and do whatever the fuck I need to do in my lifetime to help change this world. Are you? And if so, put your actions where your mouth is. You might not have a lot of money, put your money where your mouth is, like the billionaires do. But you can show up in different ways. So, one last time. Are you actually a greedy billionaire like the ones you can't stand that are in this planet? Are you actually in that category too? That takes a hard look, an honest look in the way of responsibility. And then a lot of healing needs to take place to elevate out of being that greedy billionaire that you claim to hate when really you're just looking in the mirror and hating yourself. With that said, you have all of the power and all of the love and all of the divinity to heal everything inside of you that is ugly, that is maybe now in your foresight versus in your blind spot. You have all the power to heal it. So just do the work and heal. And if you need help to heal, go to mastersofselfuniversity.com, get your free consultation, and let us help you. Thank you for listening. It's always a pleasure. Have a beautiful day. Goodbye for now.